We're back in session at 3:58. There's some possible motions arising from the in-camera meeting. I will put the motion forward that council accepts a report from Doug Henderson of Transitional Solutions, Inc. as information.
I'll ask for a recorded vote.
There's a recorded vote. I'll go around the room starting with Reeve-Link.
In favor.
Deputy Reeve Claasen's in favor.
In
Shannon
favor.
Priest. Donna?
Favor.
Tom?
In favor.
Glenn? Opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed. That carries. Have some other possible motions?
I'll put something forward. I move that the council determine, in conjunction with the upheld complaint against Councillor Kester, the following sanctions be imposed in accordance to the Code of Conduct Bylaw 2022-5, 14.21, removal from all boards until the next Wheatland County Organizational Meeting on October 18th, 2022.
Point of order. I think it has to be upheld first before we can entertain a motion.
Yeah, I'd probably.
I agree.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So, Councillor Bigger, you may want to withdraw your motion.
I withdraw my motion.
And then, yeah, I think council needs to determine if the complaint is upheld or not.
I'll move that council determines that in conjunction with the written report prepared by the investigation team based on CM 2022-03-33, that the complaint against Councillor Kester be upheld.
I'll ask for a recorded vote.
A recorded vote again. I vote in favor. Reeve-Link.
In favor.
Councillor Eichert.
Favor.
Councillor Kester. Opposed? Yeah. Councillor Bigger.
Favor.
Councillor Larson.
Opposed.
Councillor Willer-Priest.
In favor.
That's carried.
I'll move that, sorry,
It's okay.
Councillor Kester be sanctioned and he provide a written apology to Wheatland County Council for breaching the Code of Conduct, and further that Councillor Kester publicly apologize to Wheatland County Council for breaching the Code of Conduct.
I'll ask for a recorded vote.
Motion on the floor, recorded vote. Councillor Bigger.
Favor.
Councillor Priest.
In favor.
Councillor Kester.
In favor.
In favor. Reeve-Link.
In favor.
Councillor Larson.
Opposed.
Opposed. Councillor Eichert.
In favor.
Did I ask myself? Did I say? I'm in favor. It's carried.
I'd like to move that the council determines, in conjunction with the upheld complaint against Councillor Kester, the following sanctions be imposed in accordance to the Code of Conduct Bylaw 2022-05, 14.21, removal from all boards until the next Wheatland County Organizational Meeting on October 18th, 2022.
Motion on the floor,
I'll ask for a recorded vote.
recorded vote. Any discussion? Sorry, I should ask that before compliance. I'll call the question by going around the room, and Councillor Eichert.
In favor.
Councillor Priest.
Opposed.
Councillor Kester.
Opposed.
Councillor Bigger.
In favor.
Myself, I'm in favor. Councillor Larson.
Opposed.
Reeve-Link.
In favor.
That's carried. Now we move to regular business. Back to you.
We'll move to agenda item 4.3. I believe we're on 4.31.
Good afternoon, Council. Matt B. from Administration here to present the March 2022 Community and Development Services Report, found on page 239 of your agenda package. a few salient points from each business unit to just touch on for council's information for the last little while. Of course, in community services, parks and recreation, we're continuing drafting community benefit agreements with energy companies. So council previously visited that agreement and will bring some more forward as needed. We assist, of course, with respect to various AGMs we attend, and we get involved with respect to assisting any needs required from the community, and of course working with the Lakes of Murfield Homeowners Association on a recreation site concept is a priority as well. We have next quarter plans for Parks and Recreation. Moving to economic development, a few fun projects, of course. We're on track to finish the first next level signage project by July 2022. There's always a chance to expedite that work, so council will see some work. If you haven't seen already, there are stakes in the ground mapping out where those gateway signs will be with respect to that project. On page 240 of your agenda package, the Councillor Laprise touched on the Strathmore Wheatland Chamber of Commerce trade show. Of course, our economic development officer will be there. I do believe we have a booth set up, so we're looking forward to that work as well. The hydrogen expert request for proposal was distributed, so that is also exciting, and we're looking to get responses back towards the end of April, of course. We are also, council may have noticed, there is an HBO filming, so we assisted in that work, of course, so that film was done, The Last of Us, throughout the county, so that's exciting to see that industry moving into the county with strategic locations as well. So you will see actuals for fire on page 240 and 241. With respect to planning and development, exciting news, of course, the Calgary Metropolitan Regional Board exit of our membership. So we're working on amending our policies with respect to that. So some minor amendment in terms of the language. So very exciting work there. And with respect to protective services, we've noticed an uptick in terms of speed patrols. You will notice, of course, out here there's some construction work going on, so we've had a few targets with respect to traffic enforcement. But otherwise, that concludes my presentation, and I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Any questions for Deputy CAO Boscario? Just a question. Do you have a date for the pitch-in event for this year?
Yes, so in fact, I am in the middle of sending out an email to management with respect to pitch-in, and of course we will let council know. We're looking around the April 20th week to get that rolling, so I'm in the middle of getting that out.
Excellent.
You said pitch-in?
Pitch in.
Oh, okay, thank you. I just want clarification. I'll move
The report?
transportation agricultural report.
No, community and development services.
Oh, community and development services, sorry.
You have a new job.
I crossed off the wrong one. I knew I was doing it.
Just quickly, by way of background for the new councillors, Pitch-In Week is a cleanup week in various communities across the county. So staff get involved, and we invite councillors out as well.
It's not
Agree with
throw
Clausen.
stuff in the dumpster week.
That's correct.
So you mentioned a movie, and just a little off topic, but on 76th Avenue in Calgary, they've built a little town right beside Versicol. It is amazing what the film industry will do for film. Like they've spared no expense. It is absolutely astounding.
Any other questions? There is a motion on the floor. All in favor? Motion is carried. Move to 4.32, Wheatland County Policing Priorities 2022.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of Council, Chris from Administration. I'm here this afternoon to ask that Council establish annual policing priorities for Wheatland County, and then we can refer them to the detachments that provide policing to Wheatland County for 2022. The report is pretty self-explanatory that every year the RCMP requires its detachment commanders to spell out policing priorities for each of their detachment areas. With us having 5 detachment areas within our municipality, it's good for us to kind of come to a conclusion, and they can all be shared out. by about this time every year, I get requests. We start getting requests from each of the different detachment commanders. In past, we've had them all come in for discussion. This is kind of a getting ahead on the game. So the recommendation were the same as last year: is to reducing property crime, application of a crime reduction strategy, police presence and visibility, traffic law enforcement, and community engagement. And the villages were consulted prior to this, and they're satisfied with what you're doing, and they are also doing their own things as well.
That's perfect. That was going to be my question is, I know in the past we'd brought it to Wheatland Regional Partnership for a discussion there. So knowing that this is sort of the time frame that you address it, maybe we'll try and put it on like our February Wheatland Regional Partnership meeting for next year. But if they've reviewed them and there's some consensus there, I feel comfortable looking at them. We would have the option, depending on the timing for the RCMP, if they have a tight timeline, we could take them to the May 2nd Wheatland Regional Partnership meeting for a regional discussion, but I know there's been strong consensus around these priorities. In my division, I haven't heard like a significant issue outside of what's addressed in these, but open it up to discussion or council's wishes.
I look at this and I think this is what the public has asked for, so I'm okay with supporting it. I could make a motion that county establish annual police priorities for Wheatland County and refer to the approved, whatever that says.
The recommended motion?
Yes. Sorry, my eyes are getting blurry.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you for bringing these forward.
Thank you for your time today.
We'll move to 4.41, Transportation and Agriculture Report.
Good afternoon, Council. Brad Bullock reporting on behalf of the Transportation and Agriculture Department, the GM report for the month of March. Some highlights starting on page, 265, I think, 260 of the agenda, thank you. So unregistered bridge file was complete. This actually concludes all of our major bridge replacements for the season. That office or that particular project. Next point is just a point to council just in terms of the rising commodity pricing. It is something that we are paying attention to in terms of some of our road projects coming up, and if we do notice significant increases in costs on that, we will advise council on that for potential consideration. The Township 272 slide repair has been tendered, awarded to Farm Boy Landscaping and Maintenance. The award was for $473,760, which is lower than what was originally anticipated and lower than our original budgeted costs. That doesn't represent the total cost of the project, I should add, but we were able to get good pricing on that this year, and it's scheduled to begin that project on June 1st. So. Moving on to the next page, the work in the Gleason distribution water distribution building is ongoing. It is mostly complete at this point. We're waiting on some delivery of some pumps to replace the new pumps. So currently you can see in the photos there that they've got one of the old pumps operational, one removed, and once the new pumps arrive, then those will be installed and that project can be completed. Just the delivery of those has been delayed by quite a bit. Moving on to operations, you can see some photos there of some brush clearing that is occurring, as well as gravel crushings began at the Thurn pit. And on the utility side, the reports for all of the county water and wastewater systems have been submitted to AEP for 2021. as been discussed, the rosebud tree removal project has been completed. The materials from that were left on site for local ratepayers to access if they wanted. That has all been removed, and the site's been cleaned up at this point. Onto the next page is a summary of the lot sales for the Murfield area. Actually, all lots at this point are conditionally sold. So you can see down that table at the bottom some of the pending sales and sales with conditions to be waived. But at this point, there are no lots available to be sold unless any of those sales do fall through. On the next page, summary for agriculture and environment. Obviously, this will be presented in greater detail tomorrow at the Agricultural Services Board meeting. But some of the summary of the activities of the Ag Services Board and Agriculture Environment Department there as well. That concludes my report. I'll just maybe mention, obviously, the tables at the end of the report that provide a more detailed list of the activities of each of the departments in the agricultural, transportation and agriculture department are there for council's review as well. And I'm here for any questions.
Any questions for transportation and agriculture? Councillor Kester?
Yeah, on that'd be Range Road 241. Right off of the Rocky Ford Access Road, all the bush on there. WID of using that road. Heard a lot of trees off, and they got a nice big gravel pile there. I'm getting at some places the row of trees is only this wide, and it's always bushy, and their side's getting all cleaned up. Maybe you wanted to go up and have a look at it, and take this opportunity to clean it up better, or look at it, or maybe work with the WID, or there's maybe an opportunity to work together there.
Yeah, through the chair, we'd be happy to go review that in the process, and I will send our operations team up to take a look at it and see if there's an opportunity there while the activity's going on. Yeah.
They'll just dig a big hole.
Yeah, Range Road 241.
241.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for transportation and agriculture? If not, a motion to accept the report as information.
Also move.
Councillor Baker has moved. Questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.42, temporary WID construction easements.
Good afternoon again, Council. Brad Bullock reporting for administration. So the WID Council may recall that the Council approved some agreements for sale of property to the WID for some projects that they wanted to implement in their right-of-ways. They have come back now as they're preparing for these projects and asked the county for some easements just for additional space that they require for construction in these locations. So the previous agreements that were made are attached to this this report as well. After the new proposed agreements are there for the construction easements. But if you flip to actually the very last 2 pages of the report, it does show the areas of easement that they are requesting. And these would be temporary access agreements. The agreement is for 3 years, at which point that would expire. That concludes my report, and I'm here for any questions.
Council's wishes. The recommended motion on page 276.
Make the motion that council approve temporary construction easements and right-of-ways for canal rehabilitation work by the WID within Northeast 232624 west of the 4th, roll 706,000, containing 0.016 acres, and Northwest 242624 west of the 4th, roll number 7012000, containing 0.89 acres.
Questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. We'll move to 4.51, approval of tax rate bylaw.
So council, just Tracy's handing out the tax rate bylaw, so I just recommend maybe taking 2 or 3 minutes to review it, and then we'll get into the presentation.
And council, just to note, the reason for us handing out the bylaw at the end of the day is because we needed approval of the budget to start, to get these numbers to get into the bylaw. So just as an FYI.
We appreciate you doing the work in the interim between passing of the budget and this. So just for clarity, we're looking, basically what we're determining right now is how we allocate the levies between residential, non-residential, and farmland. Is that accurate? Like the ratio of tax? And if I'm seeing correctly, we would be, what this is proposing is a decrease to the residential mill rate, but am I correct in seeing just a slight increase to farmland? And is it a slight increase to non-res? Is that accurate? I'm just comparing our 2021 tax bylaw to this proposed bylaw.
We're just going to, again, hand out a spreadsheet essentially highlighting no municipal tax increases.
How many
So it's
questions
just
do I
kind
have
of
to get
breaking
to
it
the
down
ball?
for you, Reeve-Link.
Would council like just a 5-minute break just to review, or are you comfortable with just reviewing while we're in session? What's everyone's preference?
I think a quick review is good because it's a big decision to make, right? So
Okay, let's take a 5-minute break, and if we need more than that, we can extend longer than that. Let's just break until 4:26. We'll take 5 and then we'll see where we're at. If we need more time, we can definitely take more time. Okay, I will call the meeting back to order.
Mute off.
And we will move back to the discussion around the tax rate bylaw. So administration has circulated a proposed tax rate bylaw. As we had discussed previously, we have the ability to approve the tax rate bylaw today, or if there are amendments that council would like to see, it would be necessary to provide administration time to make those amendments, and then we can always call a special council meeting, depending on the complexity of the amendments, potentially either tomorrow or after our MPC meeting the following week. That might be too late maybe for your procedures.
Just one thing to consider is that the town of Strathmore relies on our farmland mill rate, just because they have some annexed land that is still in their town that has not been developed since the annexation. So they actually use our farmland mill rate. So just cognizant of that, if council does come to a unanimous majority consensus today on what to do with it, then ultimately we can just change it. Administration just would like some time because it is probably the most important annual bylaw that we do pass in the county. And we just want to make sure that we have time and double check it just to make sure it's right.
Questions or discussion? I guess I just have a question for clarification for administration. For the mill rate required for the requisition, so for education and Wademza, we have no jurisdiction over that. That is set based on, I know you said the education at times is an estimate because it can vary year to year.
Yes, if council takes a look at the second page of your property tax bylaw, the only thing that council can adjust on this bylaw is the top of the second page, which has the 2022 tax levy. It should equal this amount, the one that we had passed in the budget. And it's only this column you can change. You can't change the assessment on any of these columns. You can't change any of the Alberta School Foundation Fund. You can't change the DIP requisition. Can't change the Wheatland Housing Management Body. You can change the minimum amount payable for a minimum on a roll. Right now we have 25. Yeah, and that's it. Those are really the only sections that you can change. So to sum it up, any requisitions, no. Those are just bills that we take and we collect. Assessment, no. So just this column is the only column you can change. It's the one right in the middle at the top of the page. And that's just allocating out the municipal portion of the tax levy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Councillor Larson?
So just a point of clarification to make sure I understand this right. This tax bylaw has been adjusted because of the defeat of the recommendation for the 1.5% increase this morning?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you for the nods.
And then, if I'm interpreting correctly, what administration has done is taken sort of the tax, well, basically the previous tax levy responsibility, if you will, or delineation, and carried that forward, but adjusted for change to assessment, varied the mill rate kind of opposite to whatever changes there are in assessment, so that the tax burden on that class remained the same ratio. Is that correct?
Yes, we tried to keep the same percentage of the burden, if you will. So farmland pays roughly 8%, and non-res and res kept the same percentage. The only other adjustment that was done is because waste management is no longer going to be a separate levy on the tax notice, we've added the waste management into the municipal portion. So therefore, if you look at this little calculation sheet, it shows the impact of the mill rates, both municipal and education, but really it's only the municipal portion that you have any ability to do any adjustment on. And you can see that the net adjustment for waste management goes down to zero for all classes there because we've incorporated into the municipal levy.
Can you just remind me why we incorporated it? It's been spoken to before, but
when we got this stemmed from a review of the possibility of adding policing as a separate requisition. And when we met with or spoke to advisors of municipal affairs, the term requisition is fairly specific in the MGA. It really only means education, housing, and DIP requisition, designated industrial property. Even though we were allocating waste management, it wasn't a true requisition. So I know administration sometimes uses the term requisition kind of synopsis, but officially in the MGA, you cannot, even police management or rural policing, we were hoping to add that. We did make a notation on page 1 of the bylaw indicating the cost for rural policing at 563 based on, I think, the original budget number that was provided. So.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm glad you delineated it, and I have heard that from other municipalities that they haven't been able to call it a requisition. And so then with Drumheller Solid Waste, it would just be that they don't have requisitioning powers. So even though it's a distinct fee, we can't call it a requisition. Okay, perfect. So I'll just share with council sort of philosophically where I'm coming from. What I'm struggling with is I'm trying to balance between mitigating increases to taxes, but recognizing that residential increases to taxes align with increase to assessed value, and just how to kind of rationalize that within the ratios of assessment. So where I'm going is, when we're seeing growth in our residential sector, whether it's due to increased assessed value of individual residential properties or new builds, by holding that like tax responsibility at the same levy total, you're to a certain extent like you are decreasing the mill rate clearly, what's proposed here. And I'm not sure that I'm aligned with that versus spreading where we do see growth, spreading that out by reducing mill rates further across. And then I'm just trying to make sure I'm taking into account, like just focusing on the municipal, because the other is obviously outside of our jurisdiction in terms of education, wheatland housing, and wheatland housing requisitions. I don't know where everybody else is. I guess what I'm saying is, like, say we had, and I'll just go like long term, say you saw a 10% increase in residential development as Lakes and Murfield builds out, we very likely may see that. We're also aware that some of our non-residential tax base may be shrinking, and we don't know what that will look like in the future with linear. I think it would be fair to shift some of that levy onto that increased residential assessment or build. Where the challenge comes in, obviously, is where people are seeing on individual properties an increase in their assessment value, and they're still, living in that home. They're not realizing the increase in that asset value. So I recognize that that's an impact on monthly finances. Just telling you what I'm thinking. Councillor Larson.
I'll just add a point of clarification about that, about the increased assessed values. It doesn't matter what jurisdiction you live in. If the assessed value of your home goes up, your taxes will go up. Regardless of whether you made improvements on it, whether you sell it or not. I've lived in enough different places that's just how it works. If you make improvements, you pay more. But if the value goes up, you pay more as well.
But what we're sort of doing with this tax bylaw is negating that to a certain extent by decreasing the mill rate by our increased assessment.
And we're not even negating it equally.
Well, we sort of are, because we're decreasing the residential based on the increased residential assessment and then increasing the mill rate on non-residential based on the decreased assessment of the non-residential. So they've held those ratios steady. So it is proportionate that way. If that, Dennis he'll explain it far better than I will.
If I may, Madam Chairman, or Reeve, just to give you maybe a broader understanding of the impact resulting here. If you look at the residential sector, which is under the gray shaded spreadsheet that was handed out, we accounted for the average change in assessment, which is around 5% in the assessed value of, so in 2021 tax year, average residential would have been assessed at 380, and now that average, and it's just a computed average across the whole county, and that's gone up about 5% to 399. So if you look at that average, at a fair statement I think once you make a decision on this, but based on this scenario, if the assessment changed more than 5%, because this is 5%, the overall tax is a 0.34% decrease. Total tax. We're not just focusing on municipal anymore, even though municipal is shown here. So if it went up slightly over 5%, then you would be at a tax revenue neutral. And if it went below, obviously. Now, I could tell you that probably majority of the properties, the higher percentage saw around that 5% or potentially less. There's a few pockets on the west side that probably saw marginally more, but it's not like significant amount of properties have seen that increase over 5%. So I just wanted you to be aware of that situation. Part of the savings here is because education mill rate, the requisition has decreased. So that's helped to offset the overall tax impact, if you will. We're trying to be revenue neutral on the municipal side by only accounting for the difference in waste management.
This is okay. I now here went down how Dennis explained it. I get it, because it's basically we're accommodating a 4 to 5% increase and kind of neutralizing that out. Anything over and above that is, we can't accommodate for that anyway. So that's what.
And that's strictly related to residential class.
Yeah. Not
if you look at farmland, which is actually a stagnant assessment, there's really zero change in that.
Yeah.
Most farmland will see a decrease of about, this is a kind of a, probably a middle of the range assessment. The better farmland on the west side would be higher assessed value than this, but they would still see an overall decrease because there's no change in their assessment, and the mill rate and education in particular dropped a little bit. So this, just to help that clarity for council.
So basically, the decreased education requisition is sort of countering the slight increase in the municipal mill rate.
It's not increase in municipal mill rate. It's actually, we're revenue neutral in municipal funding. So we have to decrease the mill rate because there's a slight increase in assessment to be revenue neutral for each class of assessment: res, non-res, and farm, or farmland. And just to be clear, that's for municipal portion only. The education mill rate saw a slight decrease as well, but that was because of the requisition change, coupled with our assessment change.
To get the ball rolling, can I move first reading?
Councillor Kester, and then you can.
So if I'm reading this right, Dennis, residential's the only class that increased in value and growth, be it from market value, or was there actually a growth component in it too? Is there more residences?
I'll pop up the Assessment 101 presentation. We can see the exact changes there. There were subtle changes in the other. Just give me half a moment, I'll put it on the screen here. But residential saw the biggest increase in assessment as a overall statement.
Because their mill rate actually went down, or the other two classes went up?
Correct, on the municipal side, yes. And that was to ensure that we kept the same percentage of the revenue stream, or municipal revenue stream, for those classes. So just as a partial information on that, if we look at, try to zoom this in here.
It's going to be right here.
Brian's saying that because we're old and he knows we won't be able to read it up there.
So linear is the biggest component of our non-residential assessment base. So I'll just give you a sub. And if you look, the overall change on linear was about 6 million reduction in assessment. Based on last year's mill rate, that equates to roughly 52,771 reduction in taxes. But based on the new mill rate, it would be probably revenue, well, it'd be slight reduction, but not as much. And then the rest of the, let me find the rest of the pages here. I think actually I have the wrong. Yeah, here we go. This is the one that I wanted to show you. So if we look at the bottom portion of this, here's the net change overall. So farmland saw a 56,200 reduction in assessment, and that's because that land most likely changed to either residential or potentially non-residential class. It's residential overall increase was 4.95%, 58 million, and that's a combination of new assessment and market value changes, what we refer to as new is growth, because growth can be reduction if there's some houses that also in some of the old farmyards were removed, but most of the new assessments probably on the westerly side of the county where most of the new houses have been built. And then non-residential saw a modest change of 4.2 million, but most of that is new assessment. Very little of that is market value change. And so effectively, there's a 1.6% change overall in the assessment. And because non-residential only saw 0.12% change and farmland saw like a negative fragment amount, or fractional amount, we have to adjust their mill rate a little bit to account to make them the same percentage of the pie as we discussed earlier.
Just a question to administration. Do you have the total levies if you maintained the mill rate and obviously applied that to the 2021, like if you applied the 2021 tax bylaw mill rates for each class to the 2021 assessment, have you run that?
Yeah, I might have it here. Just let me check something here. No, this is different options. I have that calculated. Unfortunately, I don't have it on my USB stick. I could go grab that if council so desires. It'll take me a couple moments.
I would like to see that. I'm sorry to belabor this. Would council mind? Yeah, we could either take a short break, or Brian or CAO Henderson, could we review correspondence just while?
Glenn's going for a break.
Oh, okay, we'll take a break for 2 minutes. We'll take a break.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You have been muted. To unmute yourself, press the star key twice.
Screen reflects. If we use the same mill rates, and let me just double check that the mill rates drive here. I'm about 99.9% sure. 12.5985, yeah, and 3.539 for res. So, and 8.52.
I think I have 100.
Yeah, okay.
I have a difference of like 126,172.
So we would lose $242,753, or sorry, we would see an increase of $242,753 shown on, is this on your screen? Yeah. Right under the bottom of the option 1 there. Just a bit of an interesting commentary for council as well. Assessment never stays the same at the start of the year to the end of the year. So when we set our tax rate bylaw, there could be appeals, there could be corrections, adjustments to the assessment. Just so you understand, the 2021 budget was set at $28,417,000. Based on the year-end assessment totals, that we saw about a $4,363 reduction in the actual revenue. Considering the size of the budget and the assessment, that's a pretty nominal change overall. And that's resulting from the either corrections or adjustments in the assessment. And so this number here is taking the difference between, I believe it's the actual revenue and the projected revenue based on the new assessment, so that 242,753 increase. And that's because if we were to hold the mill rate, some of the assessments went up, res and non-res both went up, farmland was stagnant or actually decreased. So if you chose to do that option, I think we'd have to adjust the budget for that, because it's not a revenue neutral from what's shown on page 2 of the tax rate bylaw, that 28.7 million.
So just being cognizant of the time and the gravity of this decision, would council be comfortable requesting administration bring back, we'll keep this draft tax bylaw that's been presented as an option, and then we could ask administration to bring to a special council meeting. Administration can determine the timing that would work for your processes so that you can be adequately prepared. We could bring back an option based on holding the mill rates steady with what they were in the 2021 just the municipal mill rate, hold that steady, and then bring that back, and bring back if there's a corresponding, like a concurrent amendment to the budget that would need to be made to a special council meeting.
We can definitely do that. So I've just kind of run numbers. I'm looking at them right now. And if we hold the municipal mill rate the same, we are short $126,000, roughly, in some change. So ultimately, administration would need to understand, if council chose that option, how would council like to spread that $126,000 across the rest of the classes? I think that we just need very clear direction on how to accomplish that.
Just a question to administration. Is it possible to, and help me with the timing of this, to reduce the transfer to reserves by that amount, or do you need to make that up in taxation?
That's honestly, so the other thing to consider, even prior to, the other thing to consider with that number is that that's still holding those mill rates the exact same. Like, we're still not really even accounting for that that increase in
police requisition, or
not police requisition, from the waste. So even if you added the waste requisition to the previous requisitions, we'd actually be taxing 100 and 200 and roughly 240 more. So if you add the mill rate from the 2021 bylaw, from the waste requisition, which we had classified incorrectly, not a big deal. We found out, we fixed it. But even if you added that in, we're still higher than what we were. Administration would like that option, but it's not in the budget. So I think we still just need to understand what council wants to do.
So my apologies, I've neglected to consider the solid waste. I would like that added, I would like the total between the municipal mill rate, and just to see this, not that I even necessarily have my mind made up, but to see what it would look like with the municipal mill rate from the 2021 tax rate bylaw, add on what we had as a requisition for the Drumheller and District solid waste, do a total mill rate. So the mill rate will look a little higher because that's now going to be integrated in rather than a separate line. See what that looks like, recognizing that, as you pointed out, we would need to amend the budget, but that we would actually be increasing the total tax levy. So we would be transferring more to reserves, right? Like that 200 and
yes, so
42 that.
Yes, and
It would almost be, I mean, it's kind of an in-between where council had, like where we were divided this morning on the budget, right? It's almost halfway.
Yes. Council should consider that they did pass that budget.
Yes.
And they passed it for a reason. just procedurally, I think we just need to kind of make some decisions with the numbers that council agreed on and just move forward.
Council's wishes.
I don't know, maybe because it's 5 o'clock, but I'm okay with these numbers. It's not that big of a change.
I'm at the point where if administration's happy with these numbers,
Yeah.
I can live with these numbers.
And I can support what's proposed as well for this tax rate bylaw, given that the education is offsetting the small increase in the municipal mill rate. Fundamentally, I would like some more fulsome discussion and recognizing that there's so many factors to take into consideration in the future, just when we're doing our budgeting process in the future. But I am comfortable with this for this year's mill rate. Not like I would not rush this decision, but I am comfortable given all of the considerations, particularly given we were not expecting that decrease in the education requisition. So I don't know, does anybody feel like you need more options or more information provided? Are we comfortable with what is proposed?
I'm comfortable, and I'll move the council for first reading of tax law bylaw 2022-07.
Questions or discussion? All in favor?
I'll move second reading.
Councillor Kester has moved second reading. Questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried.
I move the council grant permission to hold third and final reading of bylaw 2022-07.
Questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried unanimously.
Don't we still have to do the third reading?
Yeah, oh yeah, you do.
Motion to allow it, now we have to do it.
Yes. I'll move third and final reading of bylaw 2022-07. Questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you for all of your work and for answering all of our questions. We have two pieces of correspondence. The official notification from Municipal Affairs regarding the CMRB and a request from the National Police Federation, that's the organization that represents the union for the RCMP. It is a call to action from the Police Federation. Council can either accept for information or take action. Council's wishes.
I'll move the council.
Glenn got
Oh, sorry, Glenn. Apologize.
Councillor Kester?
Move that we send a very nice thank you card to Minister MacGyver for all his work and favorable deliberation.
Nice bottle of wine.
Can we ask for our money back that we put into it?
Questions or discussion on Councillor Kester's motion? All in favor? Motion is carried.
I'll make a motion that council accept the rest for information.
Questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Does council want me to respond to the National Police Federation? Or just leave it? Okay, and we have one closed session item on pay grid. I think one remaining.
Big grid thing.
It was circulated yesterday. Council should have it. I think, yes, it was.
Mental documents.
Yeah.
Yep, got it.
Yeah, we're going into closed session.
Yes, I will move us into closed session. All in favor? Motion is carried.